Christie.
Yes. Chris.
We're
here.
We're here. Great to see you. Welcome to our studio here, our podcast studio.
Thank you. It's very cute. I like it.
It's the inaugural session of our podcast studio.
I like it. You know, we have orange. I love orange. Pantrium is all the orange, just earthy colors, so I feel right at home.
Indeed. All right. Well, so we thought we'd start this series to talk about roundups for the month, what we expect to see, what things we expected to see didn't come through, and also most importantly, what do we look forward to in 2025?
From my perspective, have had a lot of conversations, helped a lot of startups as well, and supporting them with my experience. And it's probably been one of those goals. It's been the goal of this year for me: listen and support and give out of all the nuggets and experience that I've gathered throughout my career. So it's been eventful on many facets, I would say.
Right, and I'm actually very curious to talk about that, because financial services is a serious business. Serious, it's serious. You have trust. You have a lot of regulation. You need to be. There's no room for improvisation in financial services, and as a result of that, we have companies that are very competent, but sometimes they lack a little bit on the storytelling side. I don't think that the industry has just come around to what it means to tell a story that is compelling, that is engaging and relatable for the customer base. But what have you seen changing over the years, and specifically in this year, around this area?
Yeah, and you and I spoke a little bit about it as well at the Nordic Fintech Week a couple of months ago. And I think one of the aspects is that we sometimes forget the human aspects of all the products and services that we create and launch and build and create and spend a lot of energy and efforts and resources on launching. And the industry tend to focus a lot on the technology and talk about all the things that are underneath the hood. And we, for some reason, forget the human aspects of it. And that is being shown in the storytelling. I think from my perspective, we should be way better at speaking layman terms, and we should speak about what's in it for you as a customer, and what is it that we're actually trying to help you with as an individual, rather that being an individual at a business or individual Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And I think also, as we are looking towards 2025, we need to be better at storytelling from a business perspective across all facets and all skill sets within the organization. Because I think storytelling is for both a product person, engineer, to sales and marketing and support. It's no longer just a marketing skill. It's for everyone to master. So I think storytelling becomes more and more essential for businesses along the way of understanding how do we bring data through the storytelling and use data in that sense. But yeah, I don't know what has been kind of your perspectives throughout the year, and also from a storytelling perspective, but also all the conversations you've had, Chris, throughout the year and as we're looking ahead.
Yeah, I think the storytelling part, it's really a complicated one to crack, because we're all consumers, and I think most of us have some sort of account on social media where we consume a lot of storytelling, and it's engaging and it's entertaining. It might not be serious stuff, but it grasps our attention, right? And I think for us at Nordic Fintech Magazine, and specifically for me, I've always tried to bridge that chasm of how do we maintain the serious nature of the business, the trustworthy nature of the business, while still engaging people in something that is relatable, that is even entertaining. And it's quite difficult, I think, balancing those two things. Because you can just go and copy a trend, and we're not going to do a TikTok dance, right? Because no one cares about that. I think not from a financial services perspective, but how can we adopt and adapt some of the hooks and the mechanisms that we see work very well for us as consumers to the business world, to still engage the consumer in all our audience, who is also an individual consumer, but also a business consumer. And for me, that's still something that I've not yet managed to really put my finger on. I think we've tried a few things here and there. We've seen good response with some things that we've experimented with, but I think there is a massive gap that whoever manages to just understand it will really change the way in which companies communicate with their customer base.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me of an aspect from a marketing perspective. There's always been this fence up against, are you marketing to consumers or to businesses? And I think that barrier has broken down. It doesn't necessarily matter because you need to speak in a way that everyone understands. Because also, to be frank, no one wants to look stupid on the other side. So no one is going to admit that they don't understand all the jargon and lingo you just threw at them. So you just need to make sure that your user experience, the way you talk about what you're enabling, the problem you're solving, in just simple way. But it's super difficult. I just had a conversation earlier today, and I asked them, like, tell me about your business, but in layman terms, like no fluff, no industry jargon. And they were like, oh, this is a good practice because we don't do that enough. And that's exactly right. In terms of like trends and understanding how to make it like joyful and relevant and with perhaps also a bit of humor, or at least just that kind of who am I as a brand, as a personality. And this is something that marketing does a lot of with branding and so on. But it kind of goes beyond that. How do you show up and how do you make sure you have that consistency? And with humor, I think sometimes we could probably learn from just laughing at ourselves. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a couple of years ago, as I'm kind of from the good old open banking side since 2018 with the regulations and so on. Quite early on, there was a brand, and I actually forgot who it was, but he did a whole rap about all the acronyms that were associated within financial sector. Because it's ridiculous. Like, why are we doing all this? We're making our world more complicated. So that is one thing that went so and so viral, but like a lot of people talked about it, but it was a bit like making fun of ourselves. Like, why are we doing all this?
Yeah.
Why are we doing it to ourselves?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I was invited to do a presentation in November at George UX conference in Vienna. It's a conference that's organized by Erste Group, and they asked me to talk about wealth tech. Now I don't know much about wealth tech, but I know that it's prohibitively difficult to understand the jargon that investment companies use, right? So just to prove a point, I bought a copy of the Financial Times, and I stood on there, and the first thing I did is I said, oh, well, I just picked this up from the airport. I just want to read you something. And I started reading a breakdown of an analysis, and it was a room full of designers.
Okay.
And I just stopped, and I looked at them, and I said, if anyone here understands anything about it, just and I said, and that's the problem. That is the problem with this, that this is done for someone else. It is not, no one gets this. So that's why people don't take up investment. So if you want to provide investment services for the layman audience out there, you need to change the way in which you communicate with them.
But also just communication is key for everything. Relationships, business, everything. It's the backbone of most of the stuff we do. You know, agree on terms, come up with a point to meet at what time, you know. If we speak in cryptic sentences, the likelihood of misunderstanding is ginormous.
Yeah.
So why are we making it so, you know, it almost like a minefield? You have to navigate and figure out what do this other person on the other side of the table actually mean.
Yeah.
And even if we were to talk about using the same terms or the same jargon, our understanding of those words, and even in layman terms, you know, what communications means for me might be something different for you, or what trust means for you might mean something else to me. And just being able to understand that what do we mean by these certain terms, or when we say certain things, what do we actually mean? It just add a little sentence on what do we actually mean by this. And in the same when we are selling or talking about our services or presenting at a conference or whatever it might be, press releases, I think it would be so much more easy to consume, easy to understand, and just more, you will have way more power behind the words because people actually understand what they're saying. And they don't have to spend energy on trying to navigate and figure out and translate what you're trying to tell them.
Well, I think there's a basic principle here that if I want you to understand something I want to tell you, I shouldn't force you to learn my language so that it's in my best interest that you understand what I'm trying to say. So why should you learn my lingo. It should be me learning how you process information so that I can communicate effectively to you. And I think the industry is pretty bad at doing that. We navel gaze a lot, and we think everyone understands what I want to say because we're financial services, right?
And it's quite funny, actually, because payments, what we do is intertwined in everything in the whole world. You can't really do many things without a payment being a connected tissue in one way or another. And I actually play around with this with Pantrium, my podcast, because what we talk about, that being innovation and partnerships or marketing or leadership, you can learn from someone else regardless of industry. Because how you go to market, how you talk about innovation and partnership and building new solutions, using AI or whatever it might be, it actually doesn't necessarily matter, if you're Novo Nordisk or if you are a startup or a big bank.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily matter because your learnings, your principles, your way of acting and behaving together with other people from a people to people perspective is more or less one-to-one. Of course, from a technical perspective, regulations, all of those nuances are different. But I think we are, again, we overcomplicate things. And we do, as human beings, love to put things in boxes. And I also think we could actually learn a lot from looking beyond the financial industry. And not just looking in our own little bubble and get inspired by the neighbor.
Have you come across Surreal?
No.
Oh, I think you should. I'm going to send you the link because Surreal is a cereal company. It's called Surreal Cereal. It's a play on words, right? And then basically they came onto the market to take on the big ones like Kellogg's, and they launched in the UK. Um, I I came across them early on on LinkedIn when they had like a couple of thousand followers. But I don't know who they hired. Some marketing geniuses, and this was like probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Now they have 150,000 followers on LinkedIn. So that's just astonishing growth. And they're extremely self-deprecating. So they're always their adverts. They're just so insanely hilarious. They say like, okay, so we run out of budget this year in our marketing department, so we asked the people illegal to actually produce the marketing, and this is what they came up with, and then it's just something completely ridiculous, right? And then I for me, it's like that would be like if we could only figure out how we could apply the way in which they make fun of themselves,
Yeah.
and apply that to financial services in a way that we don't really trash the trust.
Regulation. There you go.
Yeah, something. Yes, something like that. It would. Actually, that would be really funny to do something about regulation because it sometimes gets a little bit too strenuous. Um, but yeah, you're right. I think we could pick up cues from other industries and see how can they be applied into financial services and what can we take from them that could help us make a little bit more interesting communication and content.
But again, this is an example of a real situation that everyone can relate to. As a marketeer, we all have to negotiate with finance on how much budget, return on investment, all those things. And also, there's a funny saying in marketing: everyone is a marketeer. Everyone has an opinion about the color, the tone of voice, how the next advertising should look like. Everyone has an opinion. And it's taking those things that everyone can relate to and know it's a hassle, or, oh, yeah, we have to make sure that those stakeholders are happy or whatever it might be. And perhaps twist that around to a fun moment that we can laugh about because we all know that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But it's a pain. But ha ha ha, because that's kind of what they did there with the finance and budgets and so on.
Yeah.
And I think it's because perhaps also there's a taboo, right? Is it where you look at where's there a taboo on a topic, and how can we just enlighten that area with a sprinkle of humor, to make it more joyful than necessarily. And again, going back to regulations, it could perhaps be a little experiment because it is very dry.
Yeah.
It's very necessary. And it's, whether you look at from a marketing, sales, or product perspective, they're kind of the roadblockers and bus killers, right? Because it needs to follow all these rules and regulations and guidelines and so on. And it's a must. But could that perhaps be turned around to something more lighthearted?
Maybe we should experiment. We should try out some regulatory humorous content. See if it works. I think also a company like ours, we have the flexibility to do all those things. I can see that a bank would be much more risk averse to trying things like this because you never know how they can land, and especially if you're making fun of the regulator, maybe that's not something that the regulator would like. But yeah, so if I ask you, okay, so we see that there's more awareness of the way in which people need to communicate, that storytelling is now becoming a word that most people recognize in all settings. What do you think would be the main trend that we'll see in 2025 when it comes to how companies will adopt some of these storytelling techniques to better communicate, especially in financial services?
I really think it goes hand in hand with user experience. How do you make sure that you help educate your customers to drive that adoption that you want? Because we talked a little bit about it earlier today about go to market. If you don't speak to your customer, you don't know what language to use to bring that storytelling to life and speak or bring a story to life that resonates with them, that are relevant for your customer, then you can create these wonderful stories from now on until next year or the year after. And it's still not really going to give you that return on investment, that impact, that growth that you're looking for. I think you have to look at it from a customer first and be customer obsessed and then work backwards from there.
Right.
And I think that is going to be one of those ingredients into a good storytelling. How do you make sure that you have a smooth customer experience, but also that you show up in consistency, but you show up also in the way that the customer expect,
Yep.
with the language that they expect and enjoy. So I think the customer, and it's something I've been talking about, we need to put the customer in the front seat. For some reason, we put them in the back seat, but they have to be in the driver's seat.
Right.
And we have to serve them. That's, at the end of the day, we're here to serve our customers, because if we do not, we're out of business and then nothing matters.
Yeah, true.
I think to add to that, one thing that stood out to me was the it felt like the industry were realizing we cannot win alone. Partnerships has become a key factor of success, and not just between fintechs and banks, but to your point as well, how are others starting to use and move into the embedded finance segment? I think that is super exciting. And then, of course, the Draghi report from Europe around European competition. We're not as competitive as we could be or should be regarding the rest of the world, especially US and China. And I would argue perhaps also in some ways India. I think that is super exciting because it highlights the importance of us to collaborate, not just within industries, but also cross industries and sectors in order to help and do more and be competitive and support each other. And not necessarily just go and look at the big giants, primarily from the other side of the pond, but also what can we do on this side of the pond. I think that's quite interesting and very exciting. One other thing I would say that stood out to me, and I would probably second what you said about open banking. Being from open banking through IA and MasterCard, I see that open banking maturity is starting to really resonate in the market and globally, and I think that's very exciting to see and follow. Another thing is, again, with my little project of Pantrium, and probably a little bit alluding to what you said about conversations, communications, meeting people at conferences. People's excitement to actually be open and honest and share knowledge and have probably a slightly different conversation than they're used to is refreshing and enlightening, and people actually enjoy it. You could argue if that's like a post-pandemic kind of result, or if it's just because people want something new, want something real, and especially also after AI. Now we of course have the AI Act that's going to help and kind of come into fruition more so in 2025. But with AI, even on LinkedIn, we hear it a lot. It's the same message from everyone. People are taking similar tones because they're come facing from ChatGPT or wherever else they're whatever tools they're using. So I think the world around us is starting to mimic each other and look more alike. So there's gonna be those, going back to what will really resonate next year, is those that stay true to themselves and dare to be different. Liquid Death is another non-financial brand that goes beyond. They sell water on bottle that is in most countries in the world for free. But they have crazy branding, right? They dare to be different and stay by what they are as a person, as a personality brand. And I think that that's going to resonate as well, because AI will be used to content creation. The Mango campaign, fully AI generated campaign, things will look alike. And it will switch over to, suddenly, if you stay authentic to who you are as a brand or as a person, you will cut through the noise because you don't look like everyone else. So that's probably another thing that I would say, not necessarily financial sector, fintech related, but it will still have relevance and impact the sector.
Okay, so I think there's something interesting here to discuss, because if you look at the vast majority, I would say probably 95% of all financial services organizations, they're almost undistinguishable. From an innovation perspective, everything is available through an API, so they can now offer exactly the same functionality as a competitor. You have blue, gray, white colors that convey, this seriousness and trust. The same words, this is like security, convenience, seamlessness, especially in the fintech. You see these repeating themes all the time. In fact, there's a Danish company that did a study on this about the indistinguishability of marketing in fintech. There, it's the same words, it's the same colors, it's the same approach. I think the ones that have been a little bit more out there. So, for example, you take the eToro campaign that they hired Steve Baldwin and did something kind of funny, but then someone else went and hired another sort of funny celebrity. So, how can companies take these bold stances and really stand out from the pack, so they don't just become part of the blob of fintech companies, financial services organizations that are telling a story that sounds exactly the same no matter who it is?
Yeah. And I think that's where you need to dive into your values, right? What do we stand for as a business? What is it that we believe is important? Who are we as a company? But that's just on the branding of the company perspective. I think we're going to see way more on the influencer side as well. You're starting to see CEOs being their own brands. Of course, Elon Musk has been one that have really done this great. You also have the big CEOs like, across the, rather being Visa, MasterCard, or even Klarna's Sebastian. They're becoming brands in themselves. And I think you were going to see more of that, because the question becomes, how much can a brand, then you have risk, right? What can we actually do that still has nuances of differentiation? But again, I think also product marketing and product go-to-market, we need to make sure that we are bold. And I think storytelling and being different in the way that we talk about it. Of course, we can't start making up new terms, because then we'll just confuse everyone about, okay, what are we talking about? Open banking, now it's pay by bank, because it's gonna help get people to understand it better. Great, but we can't start talking about it in making up our own new categories or words. But I do think influencers, people in the company, brand ambassadors, they're going to be the next big thing. And I think that's from there, you can really make a stand through your people as an organization. And then, of course, your brand is still brand equity and all those things. But I think where you probably have more flexibility, more creativity, is through brand ambassadors and your advocacy in-house.
That's quite interesting, actually. So what sort of values do you think that a brand ambassador should be able to espouse in order to stand out?
I think it's still, who are you? What do you believe in? Because I also think the danger is that you become fake, right? I think, again, you can have many opinions about it. Kim Kardashian, but she's consistent. She wear home brands. She's fully Skims, right? I think that is what you should look for. Not people that are, when you're hiring a brand ambassador or influencer and they get paid to do something, or in this instance, they might just be working for a company and they're doing certain things because that's what the company would like them to do, but it's not authentic to who they are. So I think as a person, you need to still be true to who you are, and make sure also if you don't really match perhaps with the brand you're working for, maybe think about it for your own perspective, because it will then hurt your own personal brand. I think it's important to stay authentic, live what you believe, and therefore also people trust what you say. But if you one day work for this company and you believe in oil and gas, and the next day you are in ESG, no one will trust you as a person. So I do think that decency, trust, what do you believe in as a human being? And then how does that reflect the company you work for?
And that's an interesting one for myself as an expat living in Denmark. I've seen differences in different various cultures. I've had the opportunity to live in various countries, and definitely something I see in the Nordics is that there is a tendency to think in a very similar way. So for example, you talk about oil and gas, example, right? So if someone wanted to become an ambassador for, let's say, a financial product and service, saying I strongly believe in fossil fuels, I don't know if that will go down very well in a region where most people tend to align with certain ideas. Clearly, fossil fuels not being the one that's in vogue at the moment. Do you think there's scope for that diversity of opinion and diversity of values in influencers in the Nordics?
I think there must. Because again, we are all individuals. We should be allowed to have different opinions and view the world differently, because all those nuances make it interesting as well. Would you ever come? Because you would at least hope somewhat that those people who are in those industries, that maybe some of us don't understand. Weapon could be another one, right? Military for me, I would never see myself in that sector. But others, I would assume those that work in that is because they believe they're doing something. They believe in the mission, the vision, what they're there to do, and that they can make a difference in the world. But I think it's important to embrace everyone and listen to each other's differences. But then that's also where you need to be good at navigating, what do I believe in, and is that something I should take in, or should I just embrace it and say, okay, that's interesting, I don't believe it, but I understand where you're coming from. Because again, all that will also heighten your perspective. Because if we were end up in a little circle of mini-me's, then my world and my viewpoint is going to be very narrow-minded.
And your addressable market could also be quite reduced,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, okay, so let's talk a little bit about 2025.
Yeah.
What things would you hope to see changing in the fintech space in 2025?
I would like to see more collaboration across both sectors, but also across big and small organizations, coming together to solve real problems for real people. And that we dare lean in on bringing customers into the discussions, but actually listen. I think often, yes, we do market research. Yes, we have done customer service. But did you actually implement what was being told? And did you actually listen to what the customer said? I think we could do way more there, and be focused on helping more so than necessarily just selling, because that would be the result of helping. So I would love to see more of that. What about yourself?
I have to agree with you on the cross industry, cross sector collaboration, because I think again we're with these silos, with these artificial silos that we said. It Financial services is just a tool, and whether we like it or not, it's just a tool. No one wakes up in the morning thinking, "Oh, I really want to call my bank," or "I really want to get a mortgage." No, you think about having a home, providing an environment for your family to grow and develop and nourish them. You have to go get a mortgage because of that, but no one really wants a mortgage. You just want to be able to procure homes.
It's a means to an end.
It's a means to an end, and when you see that from outside the industry, we had a great event here in April of Intensity, where we invited retailers that are saying, like, we're now having to develop our own payment systems because the payment industry is not responding to what we need. We need to be able to understand our customers' behaviors, and we can do that from what they do in the store. So when they have an app, we know what they pick up, we know what they put back, we know what they purchase regularly. We have a much better intimate understanding of what it is that they need and how we can better serve them. The payment companies can't tell us that. They cannot help us with that. So now we're having to develop functionality that mimics the same that the payments are doing. And I'm thinking, like, why? So surely there should be a much more fluid handover of capabilities between industries, because ultimately it all connects with us as a consumer, right? Especially if we're talking about the B2C markets.
Yeah.
Why do we have to go the one that deals with the bank, that then deals with the car dealership, that then deals with insurance? Why can't you just all get together and serve me, so
Yes.
make things seamless for me, right? And then so I'm hopeful in the way that we see those barriers falling down slowly. Maybe think about a future where the entire ecosystem of companies that we engage with work together to serve our specific needs.
Yes. Wouldn't that be a joy?
Oh, that would be amazing.
That would be nice, right? But it's again like end-to-end customer journey, customer experience. What is it that I'm trying, to your point, I want to buy a house. I should just be able to do that as smooth and fictionally and without any hassle or stress. And then it doesn't necessarily matter to me as a customer. I don't really care who needs to collaborate and how the different payment methods or different parts of pockets come together. It should just come together because I just want to buy my house.
Yeah, I met a company in Portugal. They were an estate agent, and they were trying to differentiate themselves by saying, we are the only ones you need to deal with. We'll take care of your mortgage. We take care of your insurance. We could take care of the movers. We take care of the designers that will redecorate. We take care of the painters. We'll take care of getting your furniture, of getting you credit to buy the furniture. You just deal with us. Now that requires an enormous amount of capabilities from the organization to have. But if that was available to me, I'd be like, yes, please, thank you. I don't have to. These are all things that I need. I don't see why I should be the one calling and trying to find the best price and then dealing with all different providers.
But that's also why it's a convenience, right? And would you pay more for that versus going out?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because ultimately is my time, right?
That's why convenience stores are such a success as well. You just go down, pick up your milk or whatever you need. That has all sorts of things, or like the development of gas stations or petrol stations. I think that's another good example where now you can buy candy and toasts and everything, coffee.
And a significant markup.
Yes.
So yes, people do pay more.
And I think with the embedded finance and connecting one service, I think that's gonna be the next big thing. And to that, direct to consumers. We're seeing this in retail, and I do think that we're gonna see that in payment spaces and also just in general commerce, other platforms as well. But I think the best example I can give is, for example, Nike. They cut out the middleman, Foot Locker as an example. They now serve customers directly through their stores.
Yeah.
They re-looked at their marketplace and how to build a relationship with the customers. And I think the principle there is going to come to the financial sector as well. How do you build a better and stronger relationship with your customers directly than through other middlemen?
Yeah, but then I think that's a little bit at odds with the whole embedded finance principle, where who owns the interface with the direct interface with the customer.
Yes.
I would only want to do with my bank if my bank is the one that is also going to connect directly with the retailers that sell the things that I want to buy, with whoever, with the travel agencies. But so far it's always been the other way around. You deal directly with the industry, and then they connect to your bank through the back end. So it's an interesting prospect of looking at a future where perhaps there'll be no division and no silos between industries.
Yeah.
Don't know how close we are to that though. It sounds a bit utopic.
Yeah, we'll see. But like Amazon just released their first car you could buy and finance and everything through their platform in the US. So perhaps it's not too far away from the near future as we probably think.
Yeah, well, that's true. And then I guess it's fair game, if companies see a way of servicing that need for the customers, and why not?
It's only Hyundai, but
To start with, yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Maybe I'd like to talk a little bit about AI
yeah,
because
we can't not
we talk a lot about, yeah, we want to be relevant. So yes, here let's talk about. No, I'm a bit tired of AI, to be honest. I'm so fed up. It's everywhere. It keeps popping everywhere, and sure, it's very useful. But have you come across any use cases where you can really see, like, okay, so what are we doing now that's amazing that we couldn't do before without AI?
Yeah, I love this. I love this because there's still, in my opinion, and from the research that's out there, there's still missing the proof of the true value of AI. And now AI, Gen AI, it's all been bundled into one thing. But yes, of course, your backend automation, enhancing analytics, getting access to data faster, crunching that data faster. One aspect is, for example, fraud as well. Of course, we can see that there is something there in terms of the value, the actual value coming out of the use of language models and so on. But I think it's going to be interesting to see when that is actually going to truly bring value, because then you have also companies like Klarna that are cutting majority of their customer support teams because they cannot automate that through their AI tools and chatbots and whatnot. But again, that's again from an operational perspective. It is not touching necessarily the value that you drive to customers that generate revenue directly. I am looking for seeing where we'll see that. I don't have the answer, Chris, if I should be honest. I, yes, of course, we can create content and we can automate, and we have Copilot for, finishing coding snippets and all of those things. Is about reducing time on workflows and processes and data and crunching that data. But I think where we probably will see a value from AI is what happens with all that extra time that we have.
Yeah.
So because we can now do things way faster, way better at a frictional time, that means we have more time to focus on impact, strategy, customer relations, building those bridges. And I think that's going to be interesting to see what will the time that we gain, because perhaps that's the value today, the time. And what are we going to do with that time?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, because I think that's what technology generally does. It just makes things more efficient. It doesn't really do any new things. I think that ability to create something new, it's truly a human ability. AI is great at generating stuff that has been generated before, and that can make things much more efficient. But then the question for me remains, like, okay, so if you're given, let's say, if someone gives you 20 more hours a week, what are you going to do with them? And I think, knowing the human tendency of what to do with those time, I wouldn't put my money in saying that, yeah, we're suddenly going to, like, be so innovative. I think people would just,
Yeah. We could probably just ask the same question. What did everyone do while they were locked down during COVID?
yeah, that's
Oh,
true. That's true. I not no great inventions happened that are carrying.
that was extra time, perhaps.
That's true. That's
But
true.
yeah, I'm still really excited to see what AI has to offer when it comes to true value, beyond automation and giving us more time to do other things.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, perhaps. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. At least I'm sort of. I'm not a big gamer, but I'm sure a lot of people seem like, well, more time to play video games. Hopefully that's not the great contribution of AI to society, right? It will freed up people's time to play video games. Yeah. Um. So maybe I just check with Dita. Dita, are you with us?
I think
Yes.
it's time for like a wrap up.
It's for a time for a wrap up. So So DJ, the voice behind the camera, has spoken.
Yes.
Uh,
Wrap up time.
It's wrap up time. All right. Well, this has been really, really great having this opportunity to chat with you. Also, in extended format, right? And not like this. So I hope that that we'll do this regularly, and we'll do it again at the end of January, just to see how the beginning of the year is going.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's sit down once a month and reconvene on, both from your side, all the great things and initiatives and conversations that you have from a Nordic FinTech magazine perspective, and likewise with Pantrium and the podcasts and the discussions there, with bold leaders and hard truth and lessons learned. Let's see what comes out of it. I think it will be good fun.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of value in bringing some of the insights that we have in the conversations that we're having externally with Pantrium, also with the interviews that we do, with the events that we're going, the ones that we're going separately, the ones that we're going to together. It's always great if we're able to just compile some of those great conversations, great pointers, ideas, insights, and come here and share them in this space. From whoever listens out there, might be able to get to this.
Whoever wants to learn and just stay curious and stay on top of things.
Indeed.
Awesome.
Christie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for inviting me into this cozy little studio.
But we'll be back here in end of January to see how the year is going.
Yes, we will.
Amazing.
Stay tuned.
Thank you, Christie.